Hello, my stamping friends. My name is Holly Peterson, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator located in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And today we are going to make this really cute fan card. And I got all these measurements from Mary Dethridge. I believe her blog is Stampin' Lingers, if I'm not mistaken. But it looks complicated, but it is really, really easy. This one I pretty much cased off of Mary. I did it for a class and I didn't have enough of the plaid paper, so then I used this paper instead. So I'm going to set this one aside. First off, the greeting here, this happy birthday and let's celebrate, those both come from Simply Said. We're not using either one of those on today's card. So the celebrate comes from Keeping Traditions. I'm using the stylish shaped dies for the circle. This is the stamp of the month, and it is an awesome stamp set. You can get it for $5 with a $75 order in January. And we're using this big happy birthday. And then I'm also using Scenic Adventure. Now the stamp set is no longer available, but I just used the dies for this, and the dies are on last chance, and they are marked down from $31 down to $21.70. So these dies are still available. Okay, let's start with our measurements. We have a regular card base that measures 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. Now I used regular basic white, not the thick, just because it had so many layers. And then I've made a pencil mark here, 1 3/4 inch from this right edge at the top. We have cloud cover that measures 4 by 5 1/4. Again, measure in 1 3/4 inch and make a mark. Nature Walk, 3 3/4 by 5. Measure in 1 3/4 again. And those are just pencil marks. We're going to be able to erase those. So then our layers. This was a basic white, and this is the bottom fan base, and it was 3 1/4 by 5, and I cut diagonally from the top left to the bottom right. And you can actually use the other half of this cut for another card. Cloud cover, 3 by 4 3/4. Again, cut from top left to bottom right, and you can use this bottom section along with this white section for another card. Nature Walk, because this is not directional, you can still use the other half of this for this layer over here on another card. Again, this is Nature Walk, and it's 2 3/4 by 4 1/2, cut from the top left to the bottom right. Now these layers, we're going to cut part of the card base off, and that section is going to be the base layer for this fan. So this piece is cloud cover, and it was 1 1/2 by 5 1/4, cut from top left to bottom right. This is the Kintsugi designer paper, and I don't know if you can tell. I sponged it with Pretty Peacock to just darken it up a little bit, but it was a cloud cover piece in that pack. And it measures 1 by 5, or 1 1/4 by 5, again cut from top left to bottom right. I have some of the trees die cut from the Scenic Adventure, and I colored the trunks with, I have the Stampin' Right marker, so I colored them with Early Espresso, but you could use the dark pecan pie as well. stamped the Celebrate on a little strip for the front in Pretty Peacock. This is 2x3, and we're going to cut it with the Scenic Adventure Mountain. We have some baker's twine. We have a basic white that's 3x3, and it's cut with the second largest circle. I have basic white, 3 3/4 by 5 for the inside. And again, all my little notes here. And we have a cloud cover piece that measures 4 by 5 1/4. So let's go ahead and stamp the inside. And that is with this big happy birthday. And we're going to just stamp it along the bottom here. And I'm using Pretty Peacock ink. And we'll try to get that somewhat straight across the bottom. Okay, we can put that on our cloud cover. Actually, I'm going to wait a minute and let that dry. Let's take care of doing our mountain. So first thing you want to do is cut the mountain, and you can decide where you want, how much of the tall mountain, or if you want some of the little valley here and the tall mountain. And I'm going to put it pretty close to the top. This die just cuts this top edge. The rest of this doesn't. It cuts through, but it leaves the texture for the mountain. So I think I'm going to cut about right here. So it cut off the top part, and then you want to be a little bit careful pulling it off of the die. So then we have this for our mountain. And I forgot to grab some scrap paper. So here we just have a piece of scrap, and I'm using Pretty Peacock, and I'm going to use one of our small blending brushes. Whenever you use the blending brush, you always want to start off. And then I just added a little bit of ink, darkening up those cut lines in there. And across the top. Okay, I'm going to set that aside. Then what we want to do is we're going to glue it to this basic white. And we're going to cut it with the stylish shapes. So I think that's about where I want it. And you'll need to run this through twice, maybe 3 times. I have to do 3 times on my cut and emboss machine to get this to cut all the way through both these layers. And I did 4 times for good measure. And it cut really nice all the way through there. Except, you know what I should have done? I should have glued this first. So don't do what I did. You want to glue this before you cut it. So I'm just going to add some liquid glue here. Okay. So then we're going to sponge around this again. I think that looks good. I'm going to get these out of the way so I can bring my paper cutter in here. So now we're going to use those little marks that we made. So on the card base, we are going to line our pencil mark up in the cutting track and the bottom right corner. Whenever you're cutting on a corner, you don't ever want to cut right into the corner. I like to start cutting my blade in the middle so that you don't damage that tip of that corner. And remember, we're going to keep this piece. This is part of our fan. Okay. We're going to do the same with our cloud cover. We're going to line the pencil mark up. And the bottom right corner. This is scrap. You don't need that piece. And then one more on the Nature's Walk paper. This is also scrap. You don't need that. I'm going to bring in my silicone mat. These two layers can just be glued together. Before I do that, I have a eraser here that is good for taking off those pencil marks. So we'll get rid of those and a little bit up here. Okay. Use my bone folder to reinforce my score line there. Okay, and then this is going to just go on our card front. Then we can go ahead and do the inside. Okay, now we're ready to start building our fans. So bring all this back in, and our white piece. That's for decorating. So this piece that was 1.5 by 5 1/4 is going to go onto the triangle that we cut off the card base. And I like to get all the way in the corners. Have a little bit of a... Okay, so we're gonna line up the top here and down to our corner. Then we're going to put the designer paper that we sponged on top of that. Okay, there's our top fan. We're just going to layer these up for the bottom fan. Like that. Then we'll put our nature walk designer paper on top of that. And I like to start at the top here to line up the fan, and then you can kind of move the point where it needs to be. Okay, now that we have our fans put together, we're going to adhere them to our card front. And what you want to do is you want to put your point at the bottom left corner here. This angle, this point here, is going to line up with the edge of the card where you cut it. And then this one's going to be right at the right edge of the card base. So we don't want to put glue up in this top section. And then we're going to do the same thing with the little fan. It's going to come here. And you can put it wherever you like, as long as it doesn't come over the right edge here. I kind of like it almost centered. And again, you don't want to go all the way to the top with your adhesive. Just making sure that it doesn't go past my side of my card. And then it looks like I have a little bit of adhesive on here. If you don't have an adhesive eraser, they're fabulous. Stampin' Up! Doesn't sell them anymore, but you can get them at a craft store. I'm sure Amazon has them. Okay. I'll work that little point there when I get done here. Okay, so now we're going to adhere our circle here. So you really only need to put adhesive across the middle here. You can actually even put some on here. And then I'm going to glue down my trees. I'm going to do that with liquid glue. Trying to avoid the little holes in the tree. I'm just going to stick them down there. You could probably put some dimensionals underneath this side of the circle. I think I'm going to put 2 over there. I like that. Okay, this little tree, I normally would put it on the side where my greeting is, but my happy birthday is so big, so I'm just going to stick the little tree down on this side. And then we have some baker's twine. I think I'm going to just leave it like this. I'm going to end up cutting those tails off, I think. I'm just going to press that in there. And then we're going to put our celebrate over the middle of that. So I need, I don't know if these ones are too fat. I'm going to use a little one. And I'm just putting these on the end so that it has room to go over the twine. You could use linen thread on this as well if you didn't want it as thick. And there we have a simple fan card made with the Scenic Adventure dice. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching my video today. I encourage you to please like and subscribe to my channel. Bye for now.